The monitoring station at the edge of the Rigelian expanse erupted into chaos. Alert klaxons screamed across all 12 decks as Senior Monitor Vexilon Rise stared in disbelief at the readings pulsing across his holographic display. This cannot be accurate, he whispered, six-fingered hands trembling over the controls. Run the diagnostics again! His subordinate, Junior Monitor Alicia Keir, frantically recalibrated the long-range sensors, her crest flaring blood orange with distress. Sir, I've run the diagnostic 3 times. The readings are consistent. The anomalies at the Perseus boundary aren't sensor malfunctions. The expansive monitoring room fell silent as the staff of 28 elite Galactic Imperial technicians absorbed the implications. For 6 cycles, they had tracked the primitive ships creeping at sublight speeds near the Outer Rim territories. Small scouting vessels belonging to a previously unknown species from an unremarkable solar system. The Galactic Council had dismissed them as inconsequential, barely worth documenting in the Imperial Registry. Until now. Magnify Sector 7 Gamma, Vexilon ordered, his voice steadying as his training took over. The holographic display expanded, revealing a swarm of ships, hundreds, perhaps thousands, emerging from what appeared to be artificial wormholes. They've mastered fold space technology, gasped Elysia. But that's impossible. Their civilization was pre-space flight less than 200 cycles ago. Vexilon's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of profound agitation among the Rigelian people. The scouts were nothing. This is their true fleet. The largest vessel dwarfed even the Imperial dreadnoughts, measuring nearly 15 kilometers from bow to stern. The design was unlike anything in the Imperial database. Brutal, functional, with none of the aesthetic considerations that defined civilized species spacecraft. Send word to the Emperor. Priority Ultra Prime. Vexilon's voice dropped to a whisper. May the eternal stars have mercy on us all. Admiral Kirith Knox stood on the command deck of the Imperial flagship Immutable Decree, surveying the hastily assembled defense fleet. 300 of the Empire's finest warships formed a blockade at the Helios Junction, the critical strategic choke point leading to the Empire's core systems. Status report, she demanded, her reptilian features locked. In rigid military discipline, Fleet Commander Drazix Ul approached with precise, measured steps. Admiral, all ships report battle ready. Weapons charged, shields at maximum capacity. The Sundering Talon Squadron has taken vanguard position. And our intelligence on the approaching fleet? Drazix hesitated, an almost imperceptible break in protocol that spoke volumes. Limited, Admiral. The unknown species calls themselves humans. They appear to be carbon-based bipeds from a high-gravity world designated Terra or Earth, previously classified as threat level minimal. Clearly a catastrophic intelligence failure, Kirith hissed. Current assessment? The leading edge of their fleet will reach our position in approximately 6 hours. They've made no response to our communication attempts. Their weapons systems remain unclear, but energy signatures suggest capabilities beyond our current understanding. Kirith's claws clicked against the polished obsidian of her command console. In 3,000 cycles of service to the Empire, she had never encountered a situation like this. Unknown technology, unknown capabilities, unknown intentions. Dispatch diplomatic envoys, she ordered. But maintain battle posture. I want gravitational mines deployed in a spherical defense pattern. Alert the Emperor that I recommend immediate evacuation of the governmental center on Proxima Imperialis. As her orders were carried out, Kirith studied the approaching fleet on the tactical display. Something about the formation troubled her deeply. The human vessels moved with a precision that suggested not just military discipline, but a unified purpose that transcended normal species behavior. What do they want? She murmured to herself. And why reveal themselves now? She would soon have her answer, and it would shake the foundation of the Galactic Empire to its core. Ambassador Orion Vazari of the United Terran Alliance stood before the viewport of the flagship Prometheus Ascendant, watching as the stars blurred momentarily before resolving into new configurations. Another successful fold space jump, the 15th in the carefully choreographed advance of humanity's armada. "Jump complete, Ambassador," announced Captain Lyra Murakami, her voice resonating with the calm confidence that had earned her command of humanity's most advanced warship. "We're holding position at the predetermined coordinates." Orion nodded, obsidian eyes reflecting the distant stars. His tall, slender frame and copper-toned skin marked him as a third-generation Martian colonist, chosen specifically for this mission because of his background in xenopsychology. "And the Imperial Defense Fleet?" he inquired. "Exactly where our intelligence predicted," Lyra replied, gesturing to the tactical display. 300 vessels in standard Rigelian combat formation. Their weapons are hot, but they've also dispatched what appear to be diplomatic shuttles. "As expected," Orion murmured. "The Empire always attempts diplomacy before annihilation. It's written into their military doctrine." Fleet Admiral Kento Ishimaru joined them at the viewport, his weathered face bearing the neural interface scars that marked veterans of the Jovian conflict. "Ambassador, the timing of our approach must be precise. We need to maintain the psychological advantage." "I understand, Admiral. The Empire has conquered 17 sentient species through their doctrine of overwhelming technological superiority. Today, that doctrine faces its first real challenge." The three leaders gazed outward at the assembled human armada, 5,000, ships representing every nation, colony, and habitat of humanity's solar system. For a century, Earth had maintained the illusion of a primitive, fractured species barely capable of interplanetary travel, while secretly preparing for this moment. "They're hailing us," announced the communications officer. Orion straightened his formal diplomat's attire. On screen, the holographic projection materialized, revealing a Rigelian officer whose scales shimmered with formal iridescence. "I am Fleet Commander Drazix Ul of the Imperial Galactic Navy. You have entered sovereign Imperial space with a military force. State your intentions immediately." Orion stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back. "Fleet Commander, I am Ambassador Orion Vazari of the United Terran Alliance. We come seeking justice for the Arcturian genocide." Confusion flickered across the alien's features. "The Arcturians? They were a primitive species that succumbed to natural extinction events. The Empire documented their passing with appropriate scientific protocols." "The Arcturians were our allies," Orion replied, his voice hardening. "And we have irrefutable evidence that their extinction was engineered by Imperial bioweapons, deployed to clear valuable territories for colonization." The fleet commander's composure faltered momentarily. "These are serious accusations without foundation. The Empire has governed this galaxy for 10,000 cycles with benevolence and wisdom. The Empire has ruled through terror and genocide," Orion countered. "The Arcturians were merely the most recent victims. We have documented evidence of 17 similar natural extinctions over the past millennium. Even if these baseless claims held merit, what does a single primitive world hope to accomplish against the Galactic Empire?" Orion allowed a cold smile. "Perhaps you misunderstand our position, Fleet Commander. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to announce the end of Imperial rule and the establishment of the Galactic Covenant, a true federation of equal species." "This is madness," Drazix sputtered. "Your species cannot possibly—" "We've had observers within Imperial territory for decades," Orion interrupted. "We've studied your technology, your military doctrine, your societal structure. We know precisely what we face." He paused, eyes narrowing. "And we have allies. As if on cue, spatial distortions erupted behind the human fleet as thousands more ships appeared, vessels of varied design and origin. The surviving members of the 17 extinct species would like a word with the Emperor, Orion said quietly. I suggest you prepare him for our arrival. The transmission ended, leaving the Imperial commander staring at empty space. On the Prometheus Ascendant, Admiral Ishimaru turned to Orion. Well done, Ambassador. Phase 1 complete. Now comes the difficult part, Orion replied. Revolution without total war. As the combined fleet moved forward, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Emperor Voxidian VI, eternal sovereign of the 7 spiral arms, paced the crystalline floor of his private chambers within the imperial palace on Proxima Imperialis. His ceremonial wings, useless evolutionary vestiges adorned with precious metals and gems, trembled with barely contained fury. Impossible, he hissed to his inner circle advisors. Completely impossible. These humans cannot have achieved this. Level of technological advancement undetected. Grand Strategist Melora Tix, oldest and most trusted of the Emperor's advisors, adjusted her ancient frame in her hovering seat. Yet they have your luminance. More disturbing is their claim regarding the supposedly extinct species. Preposterous. Lies, spat the Emperor. The scientific records clearly document natural extinction events. High Admiral Zovex Raal, Supreme Commander of all Imperial military forces, stepped forward. His battle-scarred exoskeleton clicked softly against the floor. Your luminance. The humans' fleet movements suggest intimate knowledge of our defensive protocols. They're exploiting vulnerabilities we believed unknown to outsiders. And these other ships? Demanded the Emperor. These supposed survivors? The room fell silent. Finally, Imperial Truthsayer Nilith Kaur spoke, her voice whisper-soft, yet carrying the weight of absolute authority in matters of fact. Your luminance. Preliminary analysis confirms designs consistent with Arcturian, Palaxian, and Menduvian architectural principles. These were indeed species classified as extinct within our records. The Emperor's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. How is this possible? The humans claim to have rescued remnant populations, Nilith continued. Our intelligence suggests they've established sanctuary worlds beyond the Perseus Void, outside our sensor range. Voxidian collapsed onto his throne, the enormity of the situation finally penetrating his carefully maintained imperial composure. For 10,000 cycles, the Rigelian Empire had expanded unchallenged across the galaxy, absorbing or eliminating all opposition. The doctrine of overwhelming technological superiority had never failed. Until now. Options, he demanded. High Admiral Zovex straightened. We fight your luminance. Despite their impressive showing, we maintain numerical superiority across the galaxy. Our core world's defense fleets alone number over 50,000 capital ships. And risk total war? Countered Grand Strategist Melora. Their technological capabilities remain unknown. The risk is unacceptable. Then we negotiate, suggested Imperial diplomat Cressix Vol. Offer concessions while mobilizing our full military might. Once prepared, we strike decisively. The Emperor's gaze sharpened. Deception. Yes. He turned to Nilith. Truthsayer, what are the humans' true intentions? Do they truly seek justice or conquest? Nilith closed her eyes, accessing the vast network of information at her disposal. Uncertain, your luminance. Their species' psychological profile is unusual. They demonstrate seemingly contradictory traits, aggressive territoriality alongside profound altruism, technological pragmatism with artistic idealism. They appear genuinely outraged by the extinction events, yet their own history contains numerous internal conflicts. Primitive emotional inconsistency, dismissed the Emperor. Perhaps, Nilith, conceded. But their rapid technological advancement suggests intellectual capabilities we may have severely underestimated. The Imperial Chamber's communication system chimed with an urgent priority signal. Admiral Kirith Knox's image appeared, her usual composure visibly shaken. "Your Luminance, the human fleet has breached the Helios junction. They simply bypassed our entire defense line using some form of targeted fold space technology. They're approaching Proxima Imperialis directly." Stunned silence enveloped the chamber. "How soon?" the Emperor finally managed. 2 hours, Your Luminance. Their ambassador requests an immediate audience." The Emperor rose, drawing himself to his full, intimidating height. "Prepare the Imperial audience chamber. I shall meet these humans myself." His voice hardened. "And activate the stellar suppressor. If negotiations fail, we will demonstrate true Imperial power." As his advisors hurried to carry out his commands, Emperor Voxidian gazed out at the eternal stars. For the first time in his 300-cycle reign, uncertainty clouded his thoughts. The galaxy was changing. The question remained whether the Empire would change with it or burn trying to prevent the inevitable. The Imperial Audience Chamber dwarfed human architectural achievements, its ceiling soaring nearly a kilometer overhead, supported by massive columns carved from the crystallized cores of neutron stars. The floor, polished black material that seemed to swallow light, stretched 200 meters from the massive entrance to the elevated Imperial throne. Ambassador Orion Vazari walked this expanse alone, as Imperial protocol demanded. Behind him, the small human delegation, Admiral Ishimaru, Captain Murakami, and representatives from the supposedly extinct species, waited at the threshold. The symbolism was not lost on Orion. In Imperial culture, the long walk represented the petitioner's inferiority and isolation. Today, it would serve a different purpose. Emperor Voxidian VI watched the approaching human with carefully cultivated disinterest, though his inner circle could sense his tension. The human moved with unexpected grace in the higher gravity of Proxima Imperialis, another indication that the species had been dangerously underestimated. "Ambassador Orion Vazari of Terra," announced the Imperial Herald, "approaches the Eternal. Throne seeking audience with his Luminance, Emperor Voxidian VI, sovereign of the 7 spiral arms, keeper of the cosmic balance, supreme authority of all sentient life." Orion stopped at the designated position, exactly 50 meters from the throne, close enough to communicate without technological assistance, yet far enough to be vaporized instantly by the throne's integrated defense systems. "Your Luminance," Orion began, offering a respectful but notably not subservient bow. "I bring greetings from humanity and our allies." The Emperor's voice resonated throughout the chamber. "You bring an armed fleet to the heart of our empire, human. Some might consider this an act of war rather than a greeting. Just as some might consider engineered plagues that exterminate entire species an act of genocide rather than scientific progress," Orion countered smoothly. Murmurs rippled through the assembled Imperial court. Such direct accusation violated all diplomatic protocols. The Emperor's wings flared slightly, a sign of agitation. "Bold claims require exceptional evidence, Ambassador." "Indeed." Orion raised his hand, activating the quantum entanglement device embedded in his palm. Instantly, holographic projections materialized throughout the chamber, thousands of documents, research files and video recordings floating in the air for all to see. "Complete Imperial Science Division records of Project Evolutionary Guidance," Orion announced, "including detailed methodologies for targeting specific genetic vulnerabilities in non-Rigelian species, deployment vectors for engineered pathogens, and, most damning, economic projections for colonization of the naturally vacated territories." Imperial truthsayer Nylith Kaur stepped forward, her specialized sensory organs already analyzing the projected data. Her voice, when it came, was hollow with shock. "The documents appear authentic, Your Luminance." "Impossible," thundered the Emperor. "Our data systems are impenetrable!" Orion's expression hardened. "Nothing is impenetrable to those with sufficient motivation, Your Luminance. The survivors of your genocides provided that motivation." With another gesture, Orion summoned new projections, beings of various physiologies, each speaking in their native tongue while translation subroutines provided Imperial Standard captions. "I am Zelax, last pure-blooded Arcturian," spoke a crystalline entity. "My people were not victims of environmental collapse, as Imperial records claim. We were systematically exterminated for our refusal to surrender our homeworld's thorium deposits. I am Naviri, elder of the Polaxian remnant," continued a gaseous being contained within an environmental suit. "My species was declared extinct 300 cycles ago after a mysterious neurological plague. That plague targeted genetic sequences found only in Polaxian neural tissue. One by one, representatives of supposedly extinct civilizations presented their testimonies, each account more damning than the last. The Imperial Court's shock gave way to uncomfortable shifting, then to outright murmuring as the evidence mounted. Emperor Voxidian rose from his throne, wings fully extended in the traditional display of imperial authority. "Enough! These accusations, even if containing elements of truth, reflect necessary actions for galactic stability. Lesser species cannot comprehend the burden of maintaining cosmic order." "We comprehend tyranny perfectly well," Orion replied. "As does every sentient being." The Emperor's upper limbs moved subtly, signaling his guards. "You have made your accusations, Ambassador. Now you will experience Imperial justice." "I think not," Orion said calmly, activating a second embedded device. Throughout the palace, Imperial technology suddenly froze. Weapon systems, communication arrays, even the personal shield surrounding the Emperor and his inner circle. "What is this?" demanded Voxidian, genuine fear creeping into his voice for the first time. "Revolution," answered Orion, "and the beginning of a new galactic order." Grand Admiral Zovex Raal stared in disbelief at the status displays across the Imperial military. "Command Center." "Impossible," he whispered, watching as system after system reported critical failures throughout the defense grid. "The stellar suppressor is offline," reported a panicked technician. "Quantum-locked safety protocols have been overridden." "How?" demanded Zovex. "Those systems were designed to be unhackable." Fleet Commander Drazix Ul, who had rushed from the Helios Junction to the Imperial capital, stepped forward. "Sir, preliminary analysis suggests the humans didn't hack our systems. They fundamentally altered the underlying quantum principles on which our technology operates." That's beyond theoretical science," Zovex stammered. "Apparently, not for them," Drazix replied grimly. "They've achieved what our scientists deemed impossible: selective quantum field manipulation. Throughout the Proxima system, Imperial warships drifted powerless, their advanced weapons and propulsion systems rendered inert by invisible changes to subatomic behavior within carefully defined spatial boundaries. Only life support systems remained operational, a deliberate choice that spoke volumes about the attacker's intentions. In orbit above Proxima Imperialis, the human fleet maintained position, their ship's energy signatures pulsing with unfamiliar patterns. Among them moved vessels of distinctly non-human design. The supposedly extinct species returned from the void with technology that appeared to blend multiple architectural philosophies into something entirely new. Zovex's communication implant chimed with an emergency override signal, a direct link to Emperor Voxidian's personal channel. "Your Luminance?" he responded immediately. The Emperor's voice was tightly controlled. "Grand Admiral, the human ambassador has presented terms for our surrender." Zovex's exoskeleton plates clicked in agitation. Surrender? The Empire does not surrender. The damn. Alternative, interrupted the Emperor, is the complete neutralization of all Imperial technology. Permanently. They have demonstrated this capability on a system-wide scale. Our civilization would collapse within days. But our reserve fleets are as vulnerable as the ships currently orbiting Proxima Imperialis, the Emperor finished. Their quantum field manipulation affects all technology based on Imperial scientific principles. We are defenseless. Silence stretched between them, heavy with 10,000 cycles of unquestioned dominance suddenly rendered meaningless. What are their terms? Zovex finally asked, his voice hollow. In the Imperial audience chamber, Ambassador Orion Vazari stood before the assembled Imperial court, now joined by the full human delegation and representatives of the formerly extinct species. The power dynamic had shifted dramatically, the Emperor remained on his throne, but the customary distance between sovereign and visitors had been eliminated. The Galactic Covenant offers the following terms, Orion stated, his voice carrying throughout the vast chamber. First, immediate cessation of all Imperial bioweapon programs and full disclosure of all past actions. Second, reparations to affected species, administered by a multi-species tribunal. Third, transition from Imperial rule to a representative Galactic Federation within 5 standard years. Emperor Voxidian's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. And if we refuse? There is no refusal, Your Luminance, only consequences. Orion's expression remained impassive. Humanity and our allies control your technological infrastructure. We can render it permanently inoperable with a single command. You would destroy a civilization 10,000 cycles old? The Emperor challenged. We would prevent that civilization from destroying others, corrected Zalax, the Arcturian representative. As it destroyed mine, Grand Strategist Melora Tix, whose age granted her perspectives younger Rigelians lacked, slowly rose from her hovering chair. Your Luminance, I believe we must consider these terms. The alternative appears to be technological regression to pre-space flight capability. The Emperor's wings drooped slightly, a momentous breach of Imperial composure. How? He asked, addressing Orion directly. How did humans advance so rapidly without detection? Necessity and deception, Orion replied. We discovered Arcturian refugees a century ago, learned of Imperial expansion patterns, and recognized our likely fate. So we presented a facade, a primitive species barely achieving spaceflight, while developing technologies specifically designed to counteract Imperial advantages. Admiral Ishimaru stepped forward. Your military doctrine relies on technological superiority and overwhelming force. We developed selective quantum manipulation specifically to neutralize that advantage. And the other species? Asked Imperial. Truthsayer Nihilith. Captain Lyra Murakami answered. We found them as we expanded our covert observation network. Each provided pieces to the puzzle, technologies, strategies, and most importantly, evidence of Imperial atrocities. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne, seeming suddenly ancient despite his species' extraordinary lifespan. You leave us no choice but acceptance. On the contrary, Orion corrected. We give you the choice the Empire denied 17 other species, evolution rather than extinction, adaptation rather than annihilation. As these words echoed through the chamber, the future of the galaxy hung in delicate balance. The Empire that had stood unchallenged for 10 millennia faced its greatest test, not on the battlefield, but in the crucible of moral reckoning. 5 years later, the Galactic Covenant, headquarters on neutral Proxima Station, hummed with activity. The massive space habitat, constructed in orbit around Proxima Imperialis, served as the new center of galactic governance, its architecture deliberately incorporating elements from all member species. Ambassador Orion Vazari, now serving as the human representative to the Covenant Council, stood before the panoramic viewport in the observatory dome, watching ships of countless designs navigate the bustling space lanes. Behind him, the council chamber doors slid open. "Still admiring your handiwork, Ambassador?" The voice belonged to Nihilith Kor, former Imperial truthsayer and now the Rigelian representative to the council. Orion turned, offering a respectful greeting gesture. Contemplating it, Counselor Nihilith, "There's a difference." "Semantics," she replied, moving to stand beside him. Her hover chair had been replaced by an elegantly designed exoskeleton that allowed her ancient frame to move with dignity. "Today's vote weighs heavily on you." "It should weigh on all of us," Orion said quietly. "The decision to grant former Emperor Voxidian amnesty in exchange for his cooperation during the transition, it's not universally popular. Particularly among the restored species," Nihilith acknowledged. "Yet you support it." "I support justice, not vengeance," Orion corrected. His testimony exposed the full extent of Imperial crimes, allowing proper reparations. His scientific knowledge has accelerated the restoration of devastated ecosystems. "Very logical," Nihilith observed. "Yet I sense deeper motivations." Orion smiled faintly. "Humanity's history is filled with transitions from oppression to freedom. Those that ended in bloodbaths often replaced one tyranny with another. Those that offered paths to redemption built something stronger." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert chime, signaling the council session's imminent start. Together, they walked toward the grand chamber where representatives of 37 species, including all 17 previously thought extinct, would decide the fate of the former emperor. As they approached the chamber, Admiral Ishimaru intercepted them, his expression grave. "Ambassador, urgent news from the Perseus boundary monitoring stations." Orion tensed. "Imperial loyalist activity?" "No," Ishimaru replied. "Something else entirely. Unknown energy signatures, massive ones, approaching from intergalactic space. Definitely not Covenant technology." Nihilith's sensory organs flared in alarm. "The Voidborn? They were considered mythological. Stories to frighten Imperial children." "Apparently not mythological enough," Ishimaru said grimly. "Preliminary analysis suggests an invasion force. Estimated arrival at the outer systems. 3 months." Orion's expression shifted from shock to resolute determination. "We need to postpone the amnesty vote and convene an emergency session." He turned to Nihilith. "If these truly are the Voidborn of Rigelian legend, then we face a threat greater than the Empire ever was," she finished. "The ancient records speak of beings that consume entire star systems, entities that exist partially outside normal spacetime. Then the Covenant faces its first true test," Orion stated. "Not managing peace among former enemies, but defending all sentient life against external threat." As they hurried toward the council chamber, Orion's mind raced through strategic possibilities. The combined technological knowledge of 37 species, including humanity's quantum manipulation techniques and the Empire's vast military experience, created potential for defense innovations never before possible in the fragmented galaxy. The council chamber fell silent as Orion and Admiral Ishimaru presented the emergency intelligence. Representatives of formerly bitter enemies exchanged glances of shared concern. Former Emperor Voxidian, present for his amnesty hearing, rose from his observation seat. "If I may address the council," he requested, his once imperious tone now measured and humble. The council chair, a restored Palaxian elder, granted permission with a gesture. "The Voidborn are real," Voxidian confirmed. "Imperial deep space monitoring detected their approach centuries ago. The Imperial expansion program, including the..." He paused. "The extinction events were originally justified as necessary preparation for their arrival. We believed only a unified galaxy under Imperial control could withstand them. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The means corrupted the end, Voxidian continued. What began as preparation became tyranny, but the threat was always real. Why? Hide this information? Demanded the Arcturian representative. Fear of panic, fear of resistance, fear that fragmented species would never unite without force, Voxidian admitted. We were wrong in our methods, but not in our assessment of the danger. Orion stepped forward. Then we faced this threat as the Covenant, not through forced unity, but willing cooperation. He surveyed the chamber. Every species brings unique perspectives and technologies. Together, we possess capabilities the Empire could never have achieved through conquest. The Arcturian representative's crystalline form shimmered with intensity. The humans united the oppressed against the Empire. Now they propose uniting oppressor and oppressed against a greater threat. Remarkable. Not remarkable, Orion corrected. Necessary. Survival requires adaptation, something humanity has always excelled at. Admiral Ishimaru activated the central holographic display showing the approaching energy signatures. We have 3 months to prepare our first line of defense. I propose an immediate joint task force drawing on all member species' military and scientific expertise. One by one, the Council representatives signaled agreement. Former enemies became planning partners, ancient knowledge merged with innovative techniques, and the chamber buzzed with urgent purpose. As the emergency session transformed into a war council, Orion found himself standing between Nihilith and Voxidian, former Imperial leaders now allies in a greater cause. The scouts were nothing, Voxidian murmured, echoing the phrase that had begun this journey 5 years earlier. The true threat looms. But this time, Orion replied, the galaxy faces it united, not through conquest or fear, but through choice and cooperation. His expression hardened with determination. And that makes all the difference. Beyond the station, the stars shone steadily, oblivious to the approaching darkness and the unprecedented coalition preparing to defend them. The Galactic Covenant would face its greatest challenge not in its birth, but in its baptism of fire, against forces that threatened all sentient life. The panic that had once gripped the Empire at humanity's arrival now transformed into resolute preparation for a greater conflict, one that would determine the fate not just of individual species, but of civilization itself throughout the galaxy. Humanity had emerged from its solitary existence to find a galaxy in need of revolution. Now, that revolution would face its ultimate test, and together they would meet it head-on.